The traditional FTE, full-time equivalent, comes in many different shapes and sizes and therefore costs. When a company has scale, complexity, different timelines needed for management insights, financial insights, compliance, those skills, those FTEs need to be matched with the size of your organization. And that's the traditional view. So skill levels command salaries, different benefits, creativity and compensation structures. When turnover happens, you have to deal with that. It's painful. And so when you knock off one of these individuals, you have to replace them. Do you really want that accounting clerk that has been there for 20 years? I mean, they're nice. They're nice to see in the hallway, but do you want that person? You want them to elevate in their career. Full-time equivalents cost full-time. So in this image, I say 6 FTEs costs 6 FTE. And it's useful to have full-time equivalents. It's useful to have employees, but you got to have them in the right parts of your company. And in some cases, on the transactional accounting side and some internal oversight in producing those reports, you don't need them to be permanently employed by your organization. I want to highlight the company of the future and how BPM gets involved. So this is purely a nice visualization to start the discussion. And I typically do have this discussion about customization of your skill set, your team. It doesn't mean that you're going to have 2 people sitting at what looks like a cafeteria table with a bunch of diagrams behind them. But you get the point. You may have a principal, you may have a CFO, you may have a VP of finance, and then you might want to augment it or replace it with people on our side. And so we've got different levels to deploy. But accounting knowledge, compliance knowledge can be met with my group. And we have a partner. We actually have 3 partners in the San Francisco Walnut Creek office that we have a team of 60 individuals that are specific to this practice, made up of managers, associates, bookkeepers. We even have some India offshore resources as well for high volume. Those skill sets can be met with specialization, either industry or specific systems, legacy systems like Michael was talking about, or deploying new systems. And the typical BPM outsourced team will involve all of these levels. We're not a staffing organization. We're not a Robert Half, although there are utilities there, and Terry's team can talk to the value proposition of that type of outsourcing. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to meet the skill sets, the industry expertise, and the systems that are customized, the right mix to you. And the beauty with this type of deployment is, fractional is truly down to fractions. On many of my clients, I spend half an hour a month, on the actual operational side, making sure that we're moving things forward, meeting the client's needs. On others, I spend more time, and same with managers. Some managers are deployed and know that they're meeting with clients for full days, partial days, and same with bookkeeping. So if we move on to the next slide, I wanted to give an example of a large company, what I'm going to call staff augmentation, and we talk a little bit about outsourcing versus augmentation. But you can imagine anything from large private equity fund. I work with a lot of big real estate funds. Any organization with many subsidiaries, maybe international consolidations. There's high volume pushes that are needed. And so if you're kind of moving with this vision here, one side is the company, their current finance department. Maybe you do have a pretty robust internal finance group. But many organizations have these pinch points. So on the BPM side, we can come in and remove that haste makes waste type of issue pinch point. Removing those late nights and long weekends. Does that sound good to anybody? Well, I mean, many times when I have conversations, the controllers, the CFOs say, but that's the way it's always been done. I had to do that, and you looked at what Jill was talking about. You're trying to make the morale of your team strong. You're trying to keep them enthusiastic about the organization. You're trying to elevate them, through their career, and you can be more strategic by removing those pinch points. And so we deploy, for an example, real estate fund. We've got a month-end close data import team that is, super ninja-like in receiving data from all the different properties, clarifying the data, making sure that it looks good, reformatting it to what your current system is, whether it's a Yardi, an MRI, a NetSuite, whatever it is, receiving that data, getting it ingested, and checking that it's ready for your financial department to be strategic, creative, and report on it. We also have a group that does the reporting. So interacting, with your financial systems, specifically skilled in the industry, to use those systems that are industry specific. And what is the result? Well, in cases when somebody gets sick, or I always say win the lottery and doesn't show up, we can deploy our people, either the manager, or in some cases I've rolled up my sleeves and got in there and made sure that the deadlines are met. And similarly, we can scale up on the bookkeeper, associate side, and fill those gaps. So let's move on to the next slide, which is the mid-size company. And you're getting the point here that on one side, you've got your finance department of any size, and they cost a full-time equivalent. They're skilled, exactly what you need. On our side, we again adjust maybe a similar team to specifically fit into what you're looking for, to remove those pinch points, or to fully supplement and replace what could be internal operations. Many companies want to have a CFO or VP of finance, and that might make sense. Others want to replace one of those people with somebody that can be more fractional and maybe bring a better strength of bench to the group. With the mid-sized companies, typically we're asking the question, can you keep the transaction process and internal controls tight by deploying new technology on our side to streamline how those transactions are processed through a good internal control framework, usually using technology to make it super tight, and then we are coming in and helping with the month-end close. So we'll typically have a manager, a senior, and a bookkeeper fractionally doing that work. And then we can run things like the procure to pay function, or the recording and reconciliation of payroll, and checking that the revenue recognition is being done according to GAAP. We can even do the collections and customer payment applications. So meanwhile, you'll always have the strength of bench like you're seeing here in the background. We also have specialists that look at internal control design and documentation. We have a technical accounting group. I love to get involved in technical accounting items, but we need to make sure that you're getting the full spectrum, or the full work product that you need to meet either your auditor's requirements, your bank requirements, and that it's industry specific. So if we move on to the last size company, this is just to give you the full spectrum, the startup example. So the startup example is typically the principal, the founder, just wants to spend the cash and make sure the venture capital firm stays off their back. But they also know that at some point they're going to get audited, and they want to make their lives easier, and they want to keep their spend down. My question a lot of times is, who is this unicorn CFO? You give them the title of CFO, and Terry's smiling a little bit because this happens. Somebody comes in and says, I can do the books. Let me focus on it. Do you really want that individual to do your books, and you're going to give them 10% of the initial company? That's not who you're hiring. you want to think about starting with the right systems. So again, with the systems we work with, we are at the expert level on NetSuite, Sage Intacct, MRI, Yardi. We can implement most of those, or work with affiliates that can implement them. And then we bolt on all kinds of great systems for procure to pay, inventory management, revenue recognition, payroll, and where we run into questions on payroll, we call Jill. But the key here is that you set your systems up correctly, and you can scale up or down and custom to you.